War Sovereign Soaring the Heavens, Chapter 782. Going too far. Sword 13 started laughing. Feng Wei, this isn't my own decision but the decision of our entire Blade Sect. Of course, our Blade Sect won't take advantage of your Skywolf Fort for nothing. According to my knowledge, besides our Blade Sect, those baldies know about your Skywolf Fort grandly holding the martial competition of the 10 dynasties. Do you want our Blade Sect to cooperate with them? Or do you want our Blade Sect to cooperate with Skywolf Fort? Sword 13 finished speaking in a single breath. Because of what Sword 13 said, the angry expression of Feng Wei's face vanished like the clouds and mist, and it was replaced with an ominous expression. Never had he imagined that this matter would actually be found out by those nasty baldies. Since you're the friend of Sword 13's closed-door disciple, then we'll drop this matter here. Feng Wei glanced indifferently at Duan Lingtian as he spoke. Feng Wei's words caused the expression of Dongguo Lei who stood nearby to go grim, and he said hurriedly. Vice Fort Master Feng, you promised me. You can't. Dongguo Lei was anxious when he saw Feng Wei wanted to go back on his words. Humph. Is it your place to interfere with what decision I, Feng Wei, make? You can leave. I'll return that favor to you sooner or later. Dongguo Lei's words were like a fuse that completely ignited Feng Wei's rage, and it caused Feng Wei's face to seem to be covered in a layer of ice. Dongguo Lei's expression went grim when he heard Feng Wei. Never had he imagined that this dignified vice fort master of Skywolf Fort would go back on his word on a whim. Of course, he knew clearly in his heart that even if Feng Wei went back on his word, he was helpless against Feng Wei, because he was utterly not a match for Feng Wei. Dongguo Lei took a deep breath and glared fiercely at Duan Lingtian, and he left a voice transmission before leaving. Duan Lingtian, you're lucky today to have escaped calamity. But having good luck for now doesn't mean that your luck will be so good for your entire lifetime. This was the voice transmission Dongguo Lei sent into Duan Lingtian's ears before he left, and his words were filled with threats and displayed his resolutions. So long as he was able to take revenge for his grandson, he was willing to pay any price besides his own life. Even if Duan Lingtian had Sword 13 as his backing, Dongguo Lei didn't care, and so long as he found an opportunity, he would kill Duan Lingtian at the first possible moment. After killing Duan Lingtian, he would flee far away from ancient desert city, and it was even to the extent that he didn't care if Sword 13 vented his rage on the Dongguo clan. If it wasn't for him having the certainty of being able to make Feng Wei help him deal with Duan Lingtian when he came to Skywolf Fort this time, he would have killed Duan Lingtian privately long ago. But never had he imagined that even if Feng Wei helped him for the sake of returning the favor, he was still unable to kill Duan Lingtian in the end. Sword 13 that appeared out of nowhere had completely disrupted his plans. When facing Dongguo Lei's threats, Duan Lingtian didn't care and seemed as if he'd utterly not heard Dongguo Lei's voice transmission. After Dongguo Lei left, Feng Wei swept Sword 13 with a cold and indifferent gaze before leaving. For a time, the gazes of the representatives and young geniuses of the 10 dynasties descended onto Sword 13. Based on what was said earlier, he seems to be from the Blade Sect. In terms of strength, the Blade Sect is surely not inferior to Skywolf Fort. Aren't you talking nonsense? If it wasn't for that, would that Skywolf Fort's vice fort master make a concession? I wonder what the words they spoke earlier meant. Many people whispered in discussion. Especially the members of the Darkhan dynasty. Besides Duan Lingtian and Long Yun, all of them looked at Sword 13 with a slightly dumbstruck expression. Even though Feng Tianwu had seen Sword 13 kill in the Ice Flame Pavilion of the Darming dynasty, She never imagined that Sword 13's strength would actually be so terrifying and even far surpass her father. An expert at the 7th level of the Void Transformation stage or above. Moreover, he seemed to not simply be a 7th level Void Transformation stage expert. In other words, it was extremely likely that Sword 13 was a formidable existence at the 8th level of the Void Transformation stage or even the 9th level of the Void Transformation stage. Sword 13 was completely indifferent to all these gazes, and he slightly raised his head to look at Duan Lingtian before smiling. Duan Lingtian, you're really good at causing trouble. If Sully was like you, I'm afraid I'd have broken his legs long ago. Even though Sword 13 spoke like this, Duan Lingtian was instead able to clearly notice that when Sword 13 mentioned Sully, his eyes were filled with a smiling expression. Obviously, Sword 13 extremely favored his closed-door disciple, Sully. Sully smiled embarrassedly when he heard this. No matter if it was most of the young geniuses from the Darkhan dynasty or the young geniuses from the other 9 dynasties, all of them looked at Sully with gazes that were filled with envy. They envied Sully for having such a formidable master and such strong backing. With backing like this, not to mention the ancient desert city, so long as Sully didn't offend the fort master and vice fort masters of Skywolf Fort, it was more than enough for him to move around unhindered. Damn it. Just a little bit more. Zai Shang's expression was extremely unsightly, and his heart was filled with a disgruntled feeling. Earlier, he couldn't help but feel excited when he saw the Dongguo clan's patriarch, Dongguo Lei, was about to take Duan Lingtian away. But right at that critical moment, Sword 13's appearance had caused everything to go up in smoke. This was difficult for him to accept. Once I have sufficient strength, the first person I kill will be the Sword 13. Zai Shang's eyes flickered with a fierce light as he looked at Sword 13. Whoosh! Zai Shang was the first to leave, and he returned to the pavilion he stayed at. Just a little bit more. Those people that wished for nothing more than for misfortune to befall Duan Lingtian, like Zhao Weiyi, similarly felt disgruntled. The people at the scene dispersed gradually. Not long after, only the group of people from the Darkhan dynasty remained in the sky. Sully, aren't you going to introduce us? The Darkhan dynasty's emperor looked at Sully and lightly smiled as he asked. Obviously, the emperor of the Darkhan dynasty wanted to get acquainted with Sully's master, Sword 13, through him. Even though he didn't know what the blade sect that Sword 13 mentioned was, but as the emperor of the Darkhan dynasty, his thoughts were sharp and could easily discern that the Skywolf Fort's vice fort master, Feng Wei, was rather afraid of Sword 13 and the blade sect behind Sword 13. He could know from this that the blade sect was probably not inferior to Skywolf Fort. Originally, as far as the emperor was concerned, Sully was from his Darkhan dynasty no matter what, and Sully had to give him face and introduce the mysterious Sword 13 to him. But he was doomed to be thinking too much. In next to no time, his expression became extremely unsightly. Am I very familiar with you? Sully glanced indifferently at the emperor, and then he called out to Duan Lingtian, Feng Wu Dao, Feng Tianwu, and Zhang Xiaoyang before returning to the herbaceous peony pavilion with Sword 13. The expression of the Darkhan dynasty's emperor was as unsightly as could be as he gazed at the figures of Duan Lingtian and the others that were disappearing into the distance. However, even though he was enraged, he didn't dare let it show. What a joke! If Sully's master, that expert called Sword 13 wanted to deal with him, Sword 13 would probably only need a single strike to kill him. As for Bai He, Bai Hao, and Zai Shang's master, Bai Nanyin, all of them were silent and speechless. They felt a wave of powerlessness before an expert like that. Duan Lingtian and the others followed Suli to enter the herbaceous peony pavilion, and then Suli introduced his master to Duan Lingtian and the others in a spacious room. Sword 13, an expert in the Blade Sect. The Blade Sect was a power of the foreign lands that wasn't inferior to the Skywolf Fort, and practically all its disciples were martial artists that utilized swords or sabers, so they were further divided into the House of Sabers and the House of Swords. Sword 13 was the vice-sect master of Blade Sect. After Suli introduced Duan Lingtian and the others to Sword 13, Sword 13 nodded and squeezed out a trace of a rare smile. "You're really not bad. If you're willing, I can make an exception and allow you to enter the Blade Sect and become an elder of the House of Swords in our Blade Sect." Sword 13 looked at Feng Wudao. Obviously, he was rather shocked by an extraordinary genius in the martial Dao like Feng Wudao had come from the Darkhan dynasty. He was extremely clear about the cultivation environment in the 10 dynasties. It was extremely rare that Feng Wudao was capable of breaking through to the 4th level of the void transformation stage before the age of 50 while under the adverse cultivation environment in the 10 dynasties. Feng Wudao's eyes lit up when he heard Sword 13, and he emitted strong battle intent. Are they many experts at the 4th level of the void transformation stage or above in the Blade Sect? Of course. Sword 13 nodded. There are no less than 7 people at the 7th level of the void transformation stage of above in our Blade Sect. As for people at the 4th level of the void transformation stage to the 6th level of the void transformation stage, there's more than 20 people. I'm willing to join the Blade Sect. Feng Wudao smiled lightly. He was addicted to the martial Dao in his entire lifetime, and he liked to challenge experts and break through his limitations in the line between life and death. Besides his natural talent, his current accomplishments were mostly because of this. Now when he heard Sword 13 say there were many existences at the 4th level of the void transformation stage or above in Blade Sect, Feng Wudao was moved. Once he entered Blade Sect, then wouldn't he have many opponents to train with? Very good. Sword 13 nodded once more when he heard Feng Wudao agree. Since you're willing to become an elder of our Blade Sect's House of Swords, return to the Blade Sect with me after the martial competition of the 10 dynasties ends. Feng Wudao nodded. Congratulations, Uncle Feng. Duan Lingtian congratulated Feng Wudao. To Feng Wudao, joining the Blade Sect was undoubtedly a great turning point in his life. Duan Lingtian believed that with Feng Wudao's natural talent and ability, once he arrived at the Blade Sect, he would surely yield unusually brilliant results and even have the chance to become one of the few experts of the Blade Sect. With the memories of the rebirth martial emperor in his mind, he felt he was capable of discerning the ability of people accurately. As far as he was concerned, perhaps Sword 13 was stronger than Feng Wudao now, but it might not be the case in the future. Because Feng Wudao possessed the potential to become an expert. Perhaps, Uncle Feng has the chance to become a martial monarch stage expert. Duan Lingtian thought to himself. Congratulations, father. Congratulations, Uncle Feng. After Duan Lingtian, Feng Tianwu, Suli, and Zhang Xiaoyang congratulated Feng Wudao. I hope you enjoy the video. Don't forget like, share, subscribe to channels.